Paramahansa says in the autobiography that too much Kriya, which is a sort of breathing practice, well, you can blow a fuse, you overcharge the body, the brain, the mind, whatever it is, the spirit, and it's disastrous. I think, in a bizarre way, the last, well, perhaps not bizarre, but in a strange way, the last recording above is consistent with this. That my third wife, well, in a sense, suffered change too much too early in her spiritual childhood, so to speak, and blew a fuse. That's the way I can say it, very secular terms. Lost her bearings. In 21st century jargon, we could simply say, oh, it was cultural shift and too much and too many changes, and poor soul was in a wilderness. In Christian terms, well, Pentecostal, they say it's demonic invasion. But in Jesus' story terms, oh, let me think about this. Hang on. Well, perhaps it's the difference between Nicodemus and the rich young ruler. Nicodemus came by night, but seemed to embrace all that Jesus was about. And seeking, and he found. Whereas the rich young ruler came by day, as far as I know. I don't know whether it was day or night, but it doesn't say. But he turned away because he had much riches. And he just knew the change was too early, or too much anyway, we would say, in all optimism and trust and faith in our Heavenly Dad, that he was simply not ready yet, but will be, in the fullness of time, or, thinking of the story terms then. I don't know, dear one. That's the wisdom of the hour. This is what Socrates' myth probably is about. That he was the wisest in Athens because he didn't dogmatically hang on to anything as known. Unlike Descartes, who was desperate to find something that was known, and clutching at straws comes up with, I think, therefore I am. I can take this as a certainty. But of course, that's absurd. Anything couched in language terms is not a certainty, because language is just a representation of, we hope, something that we find important to represent. And there's no certainties in representations, only trust at the best. Everything in this world to us is representation. Because God is cloaked from us. And the secular hang on tenaciously to this freedom, this ignorance of God that allows them this freedom to express what they long to express in their being. You know, they charge off as knights in shining armour or maidens that fall in love, whatever it is in the story. Long to live happily ever after. And of course, as I've said, the happy ever after part is at the end of, well, was at the end of every good story, almost by definition. Because it speaks to us that God, in the end, brings us to life eternal. But in terms of this universe, it takes time, or he uses time to take it. In his state of being, well, he is greater than all time and experiences the end from the beginning, I suspect. So he makes good use of the time and the ignorance to create the transitory in which we can be born into life, life eternal. Wow, what an achievement. This is the real creativity of God. This fantastic universe, you see, is, I'm going to risk something here and say trivial compared to his creation of life. It's the living God, the God of the living. For all live unto him by his grace and kindness, love. Where was I, dear one? Yes, so the rich young ruler shies away from entering the life eternal. You could say because of his great riches. He wants the freedom to hang on to the riches for a bit longer, please. If I can't have both, well, I don't think I'll be happy with heaven without my riches. I just can't make that break. So he freaks out. In my third wife terms, hates Marshall, that solves that problem. Brings all this rapid change to an end. I mean, tragic from the spiritual point of view, you might think. Well, from the religious point of view. But from the spiritual point of view, perhaps not. She needs her freedom longer. And she certainly said that afterwards. You know, she's finding herself. Well, of course, it's herself as she either was at that time or has become now, which is perhaps not a self that's terribly ready for heaven yet. You know, hating Marshall is not quite on the spiritual agenda for heaven. We're not supposed to hate anybody. And that's why a bit earlier on I was talking about grace. For time here heals all and makes the heart grow fonder. I might say in passing, I abide my time. Have done for 10 years. It's not enough time yet for her, though, apparently. May take a lot longer. Hope not. But I'll leave it with God. It's not something I'm pestering him for. I feel sure he knows better than I do and can handle it well enough without my insistence. Our God is an awesome God and loves us all. So, I think I have it with my third wife. She needs her independence, and this was the way to get it. And hold it. Maintain the hatred. Keep this loving ex-husband at bay. Father of her daughter. Being a mum, she's got the daughter, that's what counts. And the daughter seems to be flourishing in that. A bit of a secular way, but still I was secular up to 24, so it's not a problem with God, on the contrary. It's the path to salvation that God has for us in this world. For we come in as children in ignorance of God, and we more or less hear of him, perhaps. But we may well hang on to our freedom to experience what our freedom affords, which is the lessons of being here, that we come to choose God without a doubt, even in uncertainty. Wow, that's a bit of an achievement, isn't it? And I'm amazed at this in me for a moment. Can I just stick to the egocentric side of things for a second? Narrow egocentric. That I could be the expert on uncertainty and still choose to trust in God. This looks irrational at first glance, doesn't it? But I'm master of rationality, of logic as well. I mean, this is a real ego trip, this at the minute, but I do have this sort of belief in my mind as well, you know. How can a master of uncertainty and logic devote himself to God? Because he realized what uncertainty affords as regards learning and coming to know God. And so I've embraced uncertainty and logic with open arms and been blessed with overwhelming desire for God. And a trust that he might be. So much so that nothing else matters to me but this possibility. For everything else seems like darkness and despair by comparison. And so in absolute self-interest, I embrace trusting in God with all my heart, soul, mind and strength, and in doing so find such joy and peace that my strength, soul is overwhelmingly strengthened by such experience as is left here. Joy, joy unspeakable, full, full of glory. Just standing in thy presence, O Lord, by which I mean just to think of you, Heavenly Dad, is everything. It's a bit like being in love, except, well, if love is the sun in the sky, well, the Gita's verse is 1,000 suns undreamed of. Then might that Holy One's majesty and might be dreamed of. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Yes, if there should suddenly arise within the skies sunbeams of 1,000 suns undeemed of, then might that Holy One's majesty and might be dreamed of. Of course, that's the nearest I can remember to Arnold's translation of the Gita. And there are many translations, just as there are many translations of the Bible. Well, depends what speaks to you, I guess. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.